Hello, everyone. This is your host, Dr. Tomi Mitchell from the Mental Health and Wellness Show. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Michael Dillon. He is an entrepreneur and the creator of air-water-healing.com, a product line that empowers individuals to take control of their health by improving air and water quality. Dillon has built a company dedicated to enhancing well-being through the most essential elements of life. His mission is to show how clean air and pure water can transform health and unlock the body's natural ability to restore balance. Dillon is also the Vice President of Self Wellness in Boynton Beach, Florida, a center focused on holistic therapies and alternative health solutions. As more people in the U.S. seek out integrative approaches to address root causes of health challenges, centers like Self Wellness play a critical role in bridging the gap between modern innovation and natural healing practices. Dillon brings a unique perspective as a mission-driven entrepreneur who combines science-backed products with a passion for helping others live healthier lives. On podcasts, he shares actionable insights into the future of alternative health, how environmental factors shape well-being, and the entrepreneurial journey of creating impactful products. His expertise resonates with audiences who are curious about natural health solutions, environmental wellness, and taking a proactive approach to living well. Dillon's story is both inspiring and practical, making him a compelling guest for any show focused on health, wellness, and entrepreneurship. No further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. How are you doing today?
I am good. This early morning, we're recording, and I'm here ready to talk about your the work that you do. But before we dive into that, do you mind sharing with our audience a little bit about you so they can kind of understand where you came from, or so they can get perspective on you?
Yeah, so, I had a mom who was a crunchy mom before crunchy moms were cool. Back in the 80s, you didn't really hear that term crunchy mom. It was either you were either a hippie or you were just your regular run-of-the-mill house mom or soccer mom. Mm-hmm. And my mom dove pretty deep into her health. She grew up in North Carolina and lived off the land. Her mother was definitely like the organic lady. She was always looking for all of the ingredients on everything. And if it didn't come from the garden or it wasn't from a local butcher, she didn't bring it into the house. So my mom grew up eating, relatively healthy. And I think that kind of what, drove her to seek out chiropractic care. And one of the coolest things about the chiropractic care that most people don't think about is, same thing like when you go see a mental health coach or a mental health doctor, right? You don't go see a mental health coach doctor when you've had an episode. If you're working with somebody before something big in your life happens, would you agree that you're better prepared to handle it?
100%.
If you've already been seeing a therapist or a health coach or a life coach, and you're taking that preventative step, that's where chiropractic care comes into the role, just like a healthcare or mental care facilitator will, because it is prepping your body and your literal endocrine system to be prepared for what is coming up next. So when I was sick, my mom didn't jump right to, we got to go right to the emergency room. She's like, first, let's go see if we can get a chiropractic adjustment and get your blood flowing. I'm like, okay, didn't make sense to me when I was a kid, but I was like, all right. And lo and behold, I would feel better. And I remember my friends were always getting sick growing up. And I'm not just talking like chicken pox and the flu, but, everybody always had the stomach bug and kids in school were getting sick. And I felt like I was invincible. And I'm pretty sure it was because of the food that I was eating and the exercise I was getting and the chiropractor that I was seeing regularly. And I didn't appreciate it as a child, because I just looked at it like it was an inconvenience, Dr. Mitchell. Like my mom's like, here, we got to go to the chiropractor. We got to sit in the waiting room. It's so boring. I'm like, I want to be home on my Tamagotchi, start stealing my sister's Tamagotchi, making sure that the thing is fed. And as I got older and older, something drastic happened in our family's life. 2005, before I had built air-water-healing.com, my mom got sick, right? And my mom, she ended up going out to a place in California called OHI, and it was a health institute by Ann Wigmore. And the whole premise there is you go out and you talk to a mental therapist. You start, digging into your life, whether you've got childhood trauma or whether you've got some mental issues, and they put you on a certified organic clean diet. Now, I am not pushing veganism for anybody, and I'm definitely not pushing wheatgrass, because I'm telling you right now, I would rather do 100 push-ups than do a shot of wheatgrass. But when my mom was out there, that's the diet they stuck her on. She was on a very raw, vegan, organic diet. And, I watched my mom be a sick woman getting onto a plane. I didn't think she was coming back. And I think it was like maybe 4 weeks or 6 weeks when she came back, what that therapist and what that mental health coach and the life coach and the lifestyle and eating a raw diet, what it did for her in 4 to 6 weeks, I was like, why does not everybody try to change their diet and try to, get their mental health under control? And it really, really opened my eyes to what people can do if they dive deep into healing their body.
Wow, thanks for sharing. When you mentioned 80s kid, I'm not going to mention my age, but yeah, I was definitely around in the 80s. And those kind of moms were, I don't know, I think I used to call them a granola and nut kind of mothers. Like, they were very into that whole grain thing. But that was also when Twinkies were very popular and other terrible things. So, yes. That's, exactly. People are like, what's a Twinkie? I'm like, doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. You don't want to know. But you made some really good points about prevention. Like, you don't want to start building a relationship with a therapist in the middle of a crisis, because you need to be able to build trust and rapport with that person and make sure they're the right fit, number one. And two, the power of food. I've often said food is medicine. Like, back before there was doctors, MDs like myself, they were herbalists. Mothers, healers will go out to the garden, get some herbs, get this and that, put up in a mortar, add some liquid to it, and you'll basically drink it. And that's how humankind existed and survived to this year. So obviously something was working. And, as I'm sure you'll talk about the importance of those basic elements, air and water. And we live in a world where people take this for granted. And I don't know what your thoughts are, but this thing of global warming and how our world is changing and how humans are destroying this earth for various reasons, it's a concern. But it's possible for us to maybe turn back time and make better choices that will have a better impact on our lives and the environment as a whole. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, 100%. I mean, and again, I think the biggest thing is planning for the future. I think that the biggest issue that they have with, and I'm going to come at you from a point of thousands and thousands of hours of research. Okay. So like when the government lies to people about what the underlying issue is, I think it takes away from issues that actually do exist. Yes. Because when people talk about global warming and they're like, the ice caps are melting, right? Mm-hmm. When you go out and you visit Rome, have you ever been to Rome?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so if you ever go out to Rome or you go out to Italy and you go to any of those cities that were built on the Mediterranean, right, or that were on the ocean, and you go out there and you see where they would put the big granite quarries that were about 2 inches from the top of sea level when it was at low tide. You can go out there today and the 2 inches above sea level is exactly the same level of the water as it was 700 years ago. And the same thing, if you go into certain places, like if you look at the Statue of Liberty, the water level there hasn't changed since the French installed it. So I think when they talk about all of these raising waters and they start to use this as a scare tactic, as a way to tax the people, it takes away from the fact that we are destroying natural habitats. We are ruining animals' kingdoms. We are becoming a society that needs more, and more. And like you were just saying, 100 years ago, you would have been at home with your children. Your mother would have been living with you. Your aunt would have been living with you. Your uncle would have been living with you. We all kind of coexisted together. And I think this whole keeping up with the Joneses mentality makes us want to keep expanding. And we want to have bigger properties, more cars. And it's like, that's one of the things where I do draw the line, right? There is no reason. Okay, and I'm not calling her out just to call her out, but there is no reason that Taylor Swift or Kim Kardashian need to take a Lear jet to go 45 miles. They want to go from if they want to go from LA and they want to go to Long Beach, They're taking a jet. And I'm like, that right there is where I draw the line, right? There is no need for a massive capacity jet to take somebody 45 minutes. And again, there's lots of people that do that. There's politicians that do it. There's CEOs that do it. And we've got to be more conscious because, again, what if there's some plants that you were talking about, like you said, when the grandmas back in the day would go out and grab some of those raw herbs and they were coming in and they were muddling them up and they wanted to come in and help you cure your bronchitis naturally. Well, what happens if, due to our greed, we start expanding and we start going into some of those natural herbs and those plants and we wipe them out because we have to pour concrete parking garages?
Yeah, 100%. And that's happening. Like that's without a doubt that's happened. I'm sure there's many plant species that are no longer here. There's definitely animals that are no longer here or on the endangered list. But you're right. When do we draw the line? Like, it seems dramatically wasteful, and the carbon imprint and everything that goes into massive waste, which is kind of defines North America. Because if I'm correct, for food, 40% of our food, if not more, is wasted. Like, yep. It's an insane amount. The amount of food that we waste could feed the rest of the world, pretty much.
Yeah, that's another issue is we're overeaters. You know,
You know, I used to live in England and then I moved to Canada and exposed to US life. And I was like, what happened to portions? Like when I was small, when you go get a muffin at the Tesco, whatever store it was, they were like petite, small, like, yeah, now they're like the size of someone's head. Like they're huge. Like, and people are chomping on them. Or you go into a restaurant and you ask for orange juice or something natural, you get like syrup. And people are like, this is so good. I'm thinking, ugh. Or when I travel some places and I rent a car, I'm afraid to park next to cars because they're gonna ding me. Because this, you know, I've had that happen once and I was like, never again am I going into the Carolinas or Georgia and parking next to someone else's car. I'm gonna park in the corner because no one is gonna walk there. They don't want to do that. So yeah, I'm not trying to stereotype, but once you travel the world and seen sizes, you should realize one of these things is not like the other, like Sesame Street. One of these things just isn't the same. And you're right, our food portions are ridiculous.
And again, you know, I'm not sitting here trying to demonize anybody who lives by the standard, you know, 2,000 calorie, recommended diet that they give on everybody. But you have to remember that your great-great-grandmother, your great-great-great-great-grandfather, there is nowhere in the world where it is different. We were hunter-gatherers. Mm-hmm. We would go out, we would hunt, we would catch, we would lay the snare traps, we would catch rabbits, we would go fishing. Mm-hmm. You know, if you grew up on the islands, all those people that are in the Caribbean, mm-hmm. 500 years ago, mm-hmm. if they didn't catch a fish, guess what? If there wasn't any sourdough bread, which was cool before we were doing it, if there was, and they were cooking this in brick ovens and they had little fires, that's how they were cooking their food. If there was no bread left over and they didn't catch a fish, guess what? You didn't eat that day. So now there's so much accessible food here in the United States. And that's why you'll get to where we're getting to 50% food waste, but we're also overeating. And I'm not trying to make any of your listeners or anybody who listens to this podcast feel bad for eating, but know that your body was never designed to eat that frequently and that often. And I think another thing that's really scary is that, like, as soon as you start talking to somebody about, you know, intermittent fasting, and they're like, there's no science base to that. And I'm like, what about like when you go and you talk to people who literally depression and anxiety, their therapists start to see a change in them, and all they're doing is changing the way that they eat and how often they eat. And they're like, hey, you know what? You can still eat your 2,000 calorie diet, but do it in a 6-hour period and then fast for 18 hours and change your quality of water and start exercising a little bit. And it's like, wait a second, hey, you know, now I'm starting to see some changes in my blood work. Like diabetics, they always tell diabetics, oh, you can't intermittent fast. It'll kill you. I have literally seen people who have changed their diets and literally reduced how many times they're sticking themselves with insulin, and they are able to track. And I'm like, now that you've got thousands and thousands and thousands of people that are, you know, monthly going on boards and talking about their fasting and what it's done for them, It's like now people are like, oh, no, 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 no. We don't want them to stop eating, because if you're not eating as much, guess what? You're not as spending as much.
That is so true. And I approve that message, and people can throw eggs at me later. We eat too much. I've been guilty of it in the past, but this more refined version of me, which has more energy, an energy that of a 20-year-old, even though I'm not. And it's largely in part to what I eat, how I eat, supplements I take, and the fact that I move my body. There's this thing called exercise and breaking a sweat. That is powerful. And your mindset, this real estate between your ears, this mind, that's powerful too. That's where healing starts inside. And our brain can be your enemy or frenemy. We get to pick. And I made a decision to make it my friend, to leverage it and honor this temple that I was gifted with, this body. And it's a growth journey, right? It's not like we wake up one day totally enlightened and we're just perfect. No one's saying we're perfect. We're on, there are things that we are doing now that maybe down the road we'll be like, maybe I didn't need all that. But at least the intention was good.
Yes.
And overall, we're moving forward. But anyway, this is the whole new topic. But because I know you're the air water healing guy, let's talk a little bit about that. Because, air and water is something that people take for granted. They just wake up, breathe, open the tap, drink water, and think it's all good.
So I think one of the things to, really focus on is we had talked about our diet and, our ancestors and how they ate. The one thing that our ancestors definitely did better than we do is the amount of time that they spend outdoors in Mother Nature.
Yes.
Okay? And whether anybody, I don't push religion on any single person, but I will tell you, the Creator, Gaia, God, did not make mistakes. And I can tell you that the way that we were created, there is something about being outdoor in Mother Nature and just being out in the element. And I think that the more and more here in the United States that we've gotten to be accustomed to watching our favorite television show, to listening to our favorite podcast, people are doing it in the confinement of their home. And they are, and I'm going to paint a picture, and I'm not trying to be like the scaremonger here. I'm just going to be very factual. 97% of the people, when they go shopping for furniture, they do not ask the person that is selling them the couch, what material is the couch made of? Is there any off-gassing or any wood varnishes that can lead to carcinogenic, issues in my body later? California does have a lot of Prop 65s if there's lead or bolts or things in there, and they tell you it can expose you to chemicals. But there's a lot of states out there where they will not mention to you, hey, there's a chance that the granite countertop that you just installed in your house, it was from a rock quarry that was 400 feet below a radon field. And radon gas is the second leading causer of lung cancer behind cigarette smoke in the United States. Oh, and were there any glues that were put inside this foam? Were there any pesticides that were sprayed inside of the shipping container from this wicker furniture from my back patio coming over from Indonesia that could possibly lead to my daughter's eczema, right? And if we spend 80% of our lives indoor, unless you're a landscaper or a window washer in LA, you're in your building, you're in your house, you're in your studio, you're in your offices at work. So the air quality has gotten so bad because of all of the synthetic things that we're bringing into our home, right? Wow. And then on top of that, you're now bringing in artificial dyes. We're using more laundry detergent than we ever have because the average person, the average family has 2.5 children, which I never understood. How do you have half a kid? I just get it. I wish they would say 40% have 2 children and 60% have 3, but now they're like, we're 2.5. Like, I've never seen a half kid walking around. It's starting to become alarming. So I know we're not on the Zoom today, and it's just an audio recording, but I'm gonna hold up this book just so at least that way you can see it. There's a beautiful guy named Dr. Alan Summersall. He graduated from University of London, and then he studied at Pennsylvania and in Toronto, earning a doctorate in both science and medicine. He's been practicing for over 30 years, and him and Dr. James Marsden have written over about 15 books. But the book that I'm holding is called The Fresh Air for Life. Dr. Alan Summersall, he says that 50% of all illnesses are caused or aggravated by polluted indoor air, and the EPA ranks indoor air pollution among the top 4 most significant dangers to the American public. So when you start thinking about the air quality in our house, EPA recommends that, or puts it in the top 4 categories of environmental dangers to the public health. And 50% of all illnesses being caused or aggravated by polluted indoor air. That is very alarming because our home is supposed to be our sanctuary. It is not supposed to be the place where we're stationed to get sick.
100%. And to be honest, we rarely hear people talking about air quality, right? Like even though it's up there, they don't talk about it. And we're missing a low-hanging fruit. It's something also very important because like you said, we spend most of our time indoors unless you work outside, but even still, you come inside to sleep. So being mindful of what's in our furniture, that's important. So let's tie it up with like mental health, because again, this is the mental health and wellness show. And I like the idea of wellness because it includes pretty much everything, including environmental wellness. That's part of the wellness wheel, which we definitely alluded to. So how can improving air and water quality contribute to overall well-being and disease prevention?
So one of the most important things to consider is when you are breathing in, let's just talk about neurotoxins, right? Let's talk about formaldehyde. Let's talk about mold and mold spores. Mold right now, I can tell you, has one of the biggest direct links on mental health. If you talk to somebody, and you know what? Don't even talk to somebody. I had a woman that was on my show about 3-4 weeks ago, and she had shared with our listeners that she had, when she was 25 years old, she had gone through therapies, and she beat breast cancer, okay? And she said in her mid-30s, she had a water leak that she didn't know, and it was in her apartment in New York. She was exposed long-term to a very deadly black mold. And she said that over the 6 to 9 months that she was not knowing what was happening, her mental fatigue, her stomach issues, her lack of sleep, her suicidal thoughts, she said that she would rather get breast cancer again than ever get mold toxicity. And to me, that was like, for a woman to like know that like breast cancer is like one of the hardest things to deal with, and to know that she would rather have breast cancer again than to go through what she went through with mold. It made me start researching like how bad is mold toxins and what can it do. So couple different things: air quality and the mental health link. 1, breathing clean air can actually reduce stress levels, which is linked to improved mental health. It can lower anxiety because exposure to poor air quality has been linked to increased anxiety symptoms. More importantly, cognitive function. So there's over 1,000 articles of research that suggest that air pollution may damage children's cognitive abilities to increase and to increase their parents' cognitive function. So they've seen decline in both children and adults when there is poor air quality. Depression, air pollution. If you go into cities where they have massive air pollution, you go to Mumbai, India, look at the level of depression that is there, and they have directly linked it to the lack of sunlight and to the smog and the pollution that is in the hazy airs. I can tell you, like, if you don't believe that there is a direct connection to air quality and sunlight, go up to northern Michigan, up into the where they call it the Upper. You go up to the Upper Peninsula, and when they call it the winter blues, go look at the people there. They are miserable when the sun is blocked out for 5 or 6 months because it's affecting their levels of vitamin D. And more importantly, you want to be able to reduce your symptoms of psychoses, right? So if you take somebody who's schizophrenic and you put them in a home that has very, very, very poor air quality, and you take another person who's schizophrenic and you put them in a home with, let's say, 15 or 16 snake plants that are putting off unbelievable amounts of oxygen into the air and taking out the CO2, and you've got 2 or 3 really good air purifiers and they're circulating the air, who do you think's going to do better?
The second one, the one with the plants and purifier.
Correct. And I think that most people, when it comes to our health, we are penny smart and we are dollar stupid, right? Someone looks at a plant and they're like, I'm not paying $25 for a snake plant. I'm like, well, you don't really have to take care of it. You got to give.
No kidding. That is so true.
You don't need a green thumb.
No.
But the same person that's like, hey, I'm not going to put a plant in my house or in my bedroom. There's plants outside. I can go touch a plant. Well, you're breathing 11,000 liters of air a day, over 2,500 gallons of air a day. And I tell everybody, think about this. If I got 2-gallon glass jugs of water and one of them, I put a little bit of dirt in there, I put a little bit of mud in there, and maybe even I just take a little bit of oil, right? It could be canola oil or it could be oil from your car. And I just drop 2 or 3 drops of oil in there. And I go, which one do you want to drink? You're going to be like, I'm drinking the one that doesn't have anything I can see in it. There's nobody that's going to grab the dirty water. So when you start thinking about take that gallon of clean water and then take the gallon of the dirty water and imagine timesing that by 2,500. So you're breathing in 2,500 gallons of air a day. Why would you not want to make sure the 60 to 70% of the air that you're breathing, which happens in your own home, is the cleanest, most pristine air that you can possibly have?
That's a very good point. It reminds me of my life before I had kids. Plants were my babies and my dog. And I had so many plants in my home and my office. It was like a jungle. But you know what? I was pretty happy. The air quality was good. I didn't have mold issues. It was just it was great. And then when I was moved to places that didn't have natural lights, I love having windows in my office and plants and just very sterile and empty. It felt completely different. And we could all go to our Lowe's or Home Depot or local greenery and pick up plants regardless of the season. Whether you're in a snowy climate or summer all year California, you can get plants and it's dirt cheap. And like you said, snake plants, I remember back in the day, we used to have on top of those armoire, whatever, in the dining room. Back in the day, those hutches were the thing in the 80s, 90s. And we had one that literally just lived there for, I don't know, as long as I was in their house. And I don't remember, it wasn't watered very often, but that thing grew. Or peace lilies or other great snake plants or other plants that are really, really easy to maintain, but make a big difference. And they look good. They brighten up a room. They'll elevate your mood. So like you said, we wouldn't knowingly drink the contaminated water, but inadvertently we are doing this when it comes to our air quality and also our water quality.
Yeah, so I'll give a couple of them out there for your listeners. There's the bird's nest fern, the ZZ plant, rattlesnake plant, there's the Hoya heart, there's the English ivy, and also aloe vera. Aloe vera is a low maintenance plant with a lot of medicinal purposes. Mm-hmm. Also good, you can put it in bright direct sunlight, and it needs infrequent watering. So you can leave, you can go away for a week or two. Your plants are not going to die. Obviously, my favorite is the snake plant because it's very suitable for low light. And it can also purify the air inside of the home. You also mentioned the peace lily. A peace lily is another low maintenance plant that can purify indoor air, and it's also suitable for low light conditions. And it'll surprise you with a flower every 6 months.
Exactly. And I got flowers.
You've got something to look forward to.
I know. I'm like, oh, it's blossomed.
And that's kind of like what I've always loved about airwaterhealing.com, right? So every show that we go on, I always want to offer solutions to people, right? So if they can't afford the purifiers that we have on our website, which I'll talk to you a little bit because we're very proud about what we've created, but I want to make sure that we're always giving somebody an option, and again, you had mentioned Home Depot or Lowe's. If somebody really can't afford the price of a retail snake plant, then go find out who's selling to Lowe's. Go drive until you find one of those greenhouses that's on the side of the road that says wholesale and open to the public. You could go in there and save 30 to 40% on the plant buying direct from a grower. And they'll probably like it even more because there's a chance that it's a ma and pa. It's probably some guy that's owned that property there for 80 years and he started it as a little side project, and he might be an electrician during the week, and on the weekend he's got his little garden open and he's selling some stuff. Go buy a couple plants. You will not regret it. You won't. It's incredible what it does for your mental well-being, and your plants will actually grow to have a connection with you. People think you're crazy when you tell them that, but have you ever seen the videos of the people that go out and I can't remember who it was. I think it was in Wisconsin, or it was somewhere weird, Dr. Mitchell, but there was a guy who went out and he brought his acoustic guitar and he would sit in one little spot in the cornfield and he would play for a couple hours every day. And like the 30 feet from where his chair was, the corn grew like 30% higher where he was out there spending time, his energy touching the vibration of the strings. And that just goes to show something, right? There's a relationship between music and humans and plants. And when we get closer and get back to that, I think that's what, a lot of people will learn to love about what we do. All of our supplements, just so you know, all of our supplements that are on our website, they're all plant-based. So everything we do, our toxin binders, our vitamin C, our D3, all comes from plants. Most of them are all organic plants. And it's just incredible if anybody goes and does deep dive on manufacturing facilities and you look at the standards that they hold these places to. The company that we use, Global Healing, they go above and beyond every single thing. If they tell you you have to have 3 plants, they put in 30. It's just incredible what they do and how they do it. So real quick, one of the things I'd love to mention to your listeners is there's a lot of different air purifiers that are on the market. We already talked about air purifying through plants. The technology that we use inside of our air purifier is called photocatalytic oxidation. And what PCO does is it duplicates what Mother Nature does when the sun is rising, and it creates something that is called superoxide ions, also known as hydroperoxides. So the reason that we do that is because inside of our quad metallic hydrophilic coating, which just means it's a very, very special piece of metal-based box where we put a 254 nanometer UVX light inside, and that duplicates what the sun is doing when it's sending out a plasma. So when those superoxides are going out, you do not need to move our air purifier, the large V3 one that we have on the front page of the website. You had mentioned like a hutch where you had that snake plant growing up. You would put our air purifier there or in the kitchen on top of a shelf or a refrigerator. Our one unit will purify the air in the entire home, up to 3,000 square feet. You do not need to move it from room to room, and we will never change a filter.
Oh, that's a plus.
So what our machine is doing is it's creating millions of negative ions, and it's not a plate that's creating the ions, so we don't need the dust particle to come to the machine. We are proactively going out and purifying the air in your breathable air space. And I love bringing it down to a child's level, right? When my scientist speaks, Raytheon Missile Defense, 225 engineers in Washington, D.C., the man has built the most incredible equipment in the world. He designed stuff that went up onto the International Space Station. And when I say to him, make it make sense, he goes, when you were a kid, did you play with a magnet? I go, yeah, I had a lot of them. I had the kinetics, I had the magnetic stuff, I had the blocks and all the stuff. He goes, one side of the magnet has a positive polarity, one side of the magnet has negative. If you grab 2 magnets, he goes, if you put the positive and positive, he goes, they kind of kick away from each other. But if you flip that other magnet around and keep one in the same hand, he goes, when the negative and the positive get together, they clap. They snap back together and they become one. So anything floating around, Dr. Mitchell, in your house, your patient's house, when you open up your blinds, if you ever caught that ray of light before the kids wake up and you see the dust floating around, everything that you can see has a positive charge. So when we start sending out millions of negative ions, those negative ions are attaching to the positive charges. They get so heavy that they fall out of your breathable airspace. You vacuum it, you mop it, you sweep it, or you get a plant that can purify it.
Or do all the above.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love it. It's really good. So let's give our listeners some actionable steps today to start improving their air quality. What's the easiest thing? Let's just review like action, because I don't want you just to listen to this. Oh, that was nice. No, what can you do? Start today.
So I'm gonna start by saying anything that you can do to improve your air quality in your home could start with going on your favorite web source, whether it's DuckDuckGo or Google or Bing or Ask Siri. Ask a very simple question. Which one of my household cleaners can be replaced by vinegar? Vinegar is so inexpensive here in the United States, and you can go get good source clean vinegar and ask your favorite internet source, which of my household cleaners can be replaced by vinegar. And I'm going to give you a real quick update. It's a lot of them.
Yes.
You can dilute it. You can go to Whole Foods and get certified organic essential oils. If you want to, have that smell of vinegar not be as strong, you can put in a couple drops of lemon. You can get fresh squeezed organic lemon and squeeze it in there, and you can make some incredible sprays. Go to Home Depot and get one of those big Zep spray bottles, and you could literally walk around and clean the house without all of these chemicals. The fact that they have to spend so much money marketing all of that stuff to us that we just don't need inside of our house, it is absolutely incredible. You know what vinegar can do for mold? It's incredible. Want to know what vinegar can do for bacteria? It's incredible. You want to know what it can do for windows? It's incredible. You just look at the dilution ratios, and there's lots of recipes online to just use vinegar. And people are like, oh, but I want that fresh smell in my house. Well, then get an essential oil. Mm-hmm. Find an essential oil. Stop being the part of the problem. Stop bringing things into the house that are going to potentially make you sick. Now, this is something that I'll throw out there. There's a thoracic lung study that was done over 20 years, 678 participants. I think it was 60% women, 40% men. And they said that using household cleaners in the house once a week was equivalent to reducing your lung capacity, the same as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day.
Damn.
That right there to me was like, well, my lung capacity is pretty important.
Mm-hmm.
Can't go 2.5 minutes without oxygen.
Mm-mm.
So what are we doing? Why are we bringing these chemicals in? It's because we've been told to, because we've been marketed to. How did your great grandmother live without Fabuloso?
Vinegar. Steve.
It's like, come on, like this is natural stuff. I will definitely also say that, water is a crucial role to your health. I'm not going to dig into all of the water, but if anybody wants to go online, they can go to airwaterhealing.com and check out our water purification section. We've got some water bottles that are on there. We've got some underneath the sink filters that are absolutely incredible. They're all designed by doctors. And when it comes to the air purification, I tell people also be mindful of when you're traveling, right? So you can't bring your snake plants with you. It's very hard to put them on the plane.
Yeah.
We have a couple portable options that are good for plugging in to purify the size of a hotel room. That's also on the homepage of airwaterhealing.com. And again, we don't want to make this about being a sales thing. We want to make this educational. I tell everybody, first thing you should do is go get the plants. Plants are the most important thing because it's putting true oxygen in. But a plant is not going to remove viruses, and it's not going to remove black mold spores from the air. So that's where technologies can come in that are more beneficial, and that's what we're going to continue to supply, at airwaterhealing.com.
I love it. It's definitely, this conversation has been very educational, and for me, a good reminder, about my cleaning products and just how I do life. It's very easy to just grab something real quick. Let's say, I remember I used to buy these natural, I think it was tea tree oil products. I'm not going to mention the brand, but I mean, it was au natural and it was a subscription. It was expensive, but it didn't smell like bleach, and my throat didn't constrict when I came around it. So that was great. But sometimes we get away, either you move, you just change credit cards, life happens. But going back to the basics, plants, even that one, I, again, was the plant lady and then moved, couldn't take my plants. They couldn't go in the moving truck, because it wasn't allowed.
Oh,
Just
God.
take away the soil. So that's not going to work with plants. So I had to let them go. And I was like, something is missing in my home. And just recently, I started buying more plants, and I love it. I really do. It makes a difference. The missing link definitely is the air purifier. Definitely, for those listeners, it's airwaterhealing.com. Check it out. Technology-backed, scientist-backed. We want to do better. Like I said, air, water, environment, all makes a difference. Let's be mindful of our carbon imprint. Let's not, like you said, those examples of unnecessary big planes flying short periods of time, like 45 minutes. I'm sure everyone has their reasons. They're like, gotta get there quick. But look at that impact after show, after show, after day, after day. What are we doing? And what are we doing to at least, if we're going to take something from the environment, we should at least put it back, if not 2.5 times, right? Because we're like 2.5 kids. We should put it back. And Mike, is there anything you want to share with our listeners in conclusion? Also, please do mention how they can reach you.
Yeah, so anybody that wants to reach out, they can email us, Mike@airwaterhealing.com. That's Mike@airwaterhealing.com, or go right on the airwaterhealing.com website. We have our phone numbers listed there. There's also frequently asked questions. Sometimes we even have like active people doing the chat bots. I want to remind people, one of my favorite quotes that's out there is by Dr. D.D. Palmer. He was the founder of chiropractic, and he said that the power that made the body can heal the body.
100%. 100%.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I look forward to the day where, at least in my work as a physician, also a coach, that people are coming to their doctors to enhance their health, right? They're coming to learn better practices. I just wish the whole medical community would shift more into being preventative. And also, I wish that we weren't allowed to sell poisons in our food targeted at kids, and those dyes and those things that it's in our kids' cereals and other things that we're finding out this causes cancer, that causes cancer, this causes cancer. I don't know about you, but a lot of things I used in the 80s and 90s, now it's a problem. Whether it's, baby powder, hair products for women, it's terrible. And the thing is, people know this. This is not as if it's like a surprise to those who are in the industry. They know fully that could happen. But guess what? They don't care. At the end of the day, it's the dollar. It's the quick, the ease. It can sit on a shelf for a long time. They can market it, repackage it, easy to transport. That's what they're thinking.
Yeah.
And it's sad.
One of the scariest things that I've ever heard is, somebody had told me, they're like, remember, all of the things that get recalled by the FDA were approved by the FDA, right? So the Food and Drug Administration, they allow all of these things to go out there, and then they recall them. And I know you've seen it because, so for me, I don't have a television in my house that's hooked up to mainstream cable, right? We don't watch any mainstream news. I try the best that I can to look at independent journalists. There's a couple of them that I follow. Because a lot of it is, you have to understand that in order to be able to get news out there on those big networks, they have to do a lot of advertising, and people have to pay so those messages can get delivered. And for me, it's not really free if it's being bought by the sponsors, and the sponsors are the ones that are holding people to a certain standard, right? But I always joke around with people, and please don't come after me, big cereal, but I'm like, I imagine like 35 years from now, they're going to be running commercials. Did your kids eat Fruit Loops between 2007 and 2016? Did they have any of the red ones? If so, you might be entitled to $466,000. It's just
exactly.
It's like, oh my gosh. It's like, like now you can't turn on the television without hearing about Camp Lejeune. All of these attorneys, if your parents were stationed at Camp Lejeune, you may be entitled. And it's like, they knew the water there was bad. They knew that people were getting sick. Kept bringing the soldiers in. Come on in. How long do you think the Flint, Michigan knew that there
Lord have mercy, water? Oh, please. They knew from the beginning. They're like, holy crap. And then they continue business as usual. Or maybe the guy that tried to warn them got fired. That also happens too. You often get a few good ones, whistleblowers, and they get fired, or they just disappear. Not mentioning airlines.
Not to mention Boeing.
I know. I was like, yeah, right. I ain't going. So yeah, let's be real. That's what happens in this world. It's like the mafia. It's not pretty. If you think your politicians and your people, these people are holding themselves up to a high standard?
No.
BS.
Come on.
Absolute crap.
That's why we have to continue to be disruptors and teach people that the power to heal is inside of your own home.
It's within you. It's within you. Definitely is.
And I'm not trying, Dr. Mitchell. I am not trying to take anything away from Robert F. Kennedy and their campaign, but I tell everybody, Robert F. Kennedy will not make America healthy again. Making your home healthy will make your health healthy again. Start with your home, right?
Yes.
No politician, no politician is going to change something for you, because guess what? You don't have to wait for somebody to ban a food dye or an artificial flavoring. All you have to do is change your decision. I hate when people say, oh, but eating organic is too expensive. And then they're sucking down an $8 coffee and a $6 sandwich. And it's like, you do that every day on the way to work. I was like, you're spending $80 on coffee a week.
Yeah, no, for real. I smiled when you mentioned, make America great again. I don't know when this podcast will be released, but I wrote an article about that whole topic. Like this, okay, I guess we're on this mega train. We're going to make America great again. We're going to trust the democratic process. But if we're making America great again, why are we destroying health? Why are we taking away health resources? Why aren't we taking out a lot of these carcinogens and pollutions from our environment? Like, it doesn't make sense. If you want to really make America great again, America needs to be healthy. And right now, America is sick. So until you go back to the basics, that's a bunch of BS.
Yeah.
But I'll stand by it. We're going to make America great again. But we got to take the power into our own hands, because guess what? We have the power. No one is forcing, at least in this country, no one is forcing food down our throats.
Correct.
Anyway, it's my thoughts. Love me or hate me. Let's truly make America great again by going back to the basics.
Well, like I said, it starts with your home. Let's make our pantry great.
Yes, they say charity begins at home. Yes, so I'm going with this mega train. I'm not a mega, by the way. Just saying, it was not. But anyway, we're gonna jump on this train and trust the process. So let's truly make it great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me on, and I hope that your listeners will do everything that they can to take the power back to make their home a healthy environment, a safe environment, and a place that they're proud to call their healthy home.
Love it. Thank you, Mike, for being here. Thank you to our listeners for sharing your most precious resource, time. And I hope as you go back to your day, whatever you're doing, just make those one or two changes today. Stop at your local greenhouse. Stop at your big box store. I don't care. Just buy it. Get the plants. Check out airwaterhealing.com and truly make your breathing, make your life, as Mike said, make your pantry great again. Until next time, this is your host, Dr. Mitchell from the Mental Health and Wellness Show.